We're winding down the WrestleMania talk here. We have two matches left, The Undertaker and CM Punk, which we'll talk about now in part 11. And the next part, we'll talk about the John Cena and The Rock rematch in part 12. So, the streak. Let's just get this right out of the way. Everybody's going with Undertaker, right?
Oh, yeah.
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 All right, so
21
that's
and
it for
0.
part 11. The CM Punk and Undertaker match. The main bullet points that I really wanted to talk about in this were my feelings on the feud itself. Does everybody agree that, as horrible as this sounds, that they sure as fuck lucked out that Paul Bearer died? Because
Yes.
they've been building this entire feud around that, and it kind of feels like if they wouldn't have had that to build it around...
What the fuck would they have done to build up to what they have now, pretty
Right.
much?
Yeah, they were able to
I'm
capitalize.
going to go on record and say they're not exposing William Moody, the man. They're
No,
using the
of course
Paul
they're not.
Bearer character 100%.
Yeah, his son is completely behind it. He's fine with it.
Like, you know what I mean? They're not going out
Right.
saying, oh, you know, William Moody died and these are his ashes. You know, it's 100% the Paul Bearer character is what they're using.
Yeah, and
You know,
with gimmicks that they've had before, where these characters have died multiple times,
in which
and
Paul Bearer has died like twice on WWE TV. He got buried by, what was it?
he got locked in a
Concrete.
freezer. He got buried by
Buried by-
concrete.
Yeah.
You know.
So he's died multiple times on TV. The character.
And
anyway.
I think that we've seen worse in wrestling. So
Yes.
you know, I mean,
like Eddie, you know, actually using him.
yeah, Eddie's in hell, that thing.
You know, whereas they're using the death of an act like William Moody's character. They're not, you know, calling him by name.
Or Chavo Guerrero abusing the spirit of Eddie Guerrero.
Using the spirit of Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah, the feud itself, I think, has been really good. I think that this has been really entertaining. And, you know, one thing that I have to commend them on is that if they would have just made this about the streak, which they would have, I'm sure, if it would have came down to it, would have been streak against streak kind of a thing. I've had my big streak, and it's time for me to end yours, and blah blah blah. That would have came out like they're stretching it, that kind of a thing, and this making it more.
Plus, they were creative enough to use like the urn anyway, which I fucking doubt.
Yeah, they've made this more personal, which makes it a better match. And
Yeah,
one of my
because
favorite touches that they've done on this is CM Punk saying he doesn't even need to win the match by pinfall or submission.
he doesn't care how he wins.
Right. I like that.
The Undertaker's losing. I don't need to pin Undertaker. I can get it and get him to disqualify himself, or I can beat him in a count out and get him, defeat him that way. I don't care how I win. All I know is I'm taking the streak from him and all of you.
Right.
I don't care how I do it.
So I'm a big fan of this, and I think that this is going to be the match of the night,
And-
if not the potential match of the year.
And another thing that's good about it is, when was the last time Undertaker was made to look as, going into a match? Maybe the one against Triple H last year, which we talked so much about him the last part. When was the last time when somebody got the mental mind games over Undertaker going into WrestleMania? When can you think back to that?
It is the first time I've seen Taker look
24.
fragile.
Maybe Edge
Yeah.
getting into his head.
Yeah.
Great
So that's
match.
like, what, 5 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
It's been a long time since an opponent's done that to The Undertaker. Because that feud worked for WrestleMania with Edge because it was done similarly. Edge just kept getting one over Taker, Can he beat him? Can he beat him? And Punk's kind of doing the same thing, where it's like he's completely getting inside the guy's head and getting him emotional, and he's taking advantage of that and beating him every step of the way. And we haven't
Certainly
seen
up the
that.
stakes as well. It's up
Yeah,
the
it
stakes.
definitely ups the stakes, and it makes Punk look that much better going into the match, because it's like, holy, this guy's a mental mastermind. He's beating Undertaker at mind games. How the fuck is Taker going to combat with that? I thought he was the master of that.
Yeah.
Punk's doing it that much better than him. That's what I love about this feud.
What do you think, Peyton?
You're talking before about how it's separating. You should be able to separate William Moody and Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's that simple to do. And I think death is never something that should be disrespected in any form, whether it's in entertainment or whatever. I think it's a really lowbrow direction that they really did not need to go in. CM Punk and Undertaker are two of the most professional guys they have under contract. And what would they have gone with? I mean, they started doing that whole thing about respect and blah 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 blah. I don't know what direction they would have gone. I'm sure that they would have had something to go with. I don't think this is what they had to do. It was opportunistic of them to go into it. They're getting people to talk about it, absolutely. But people talked about Chris Benoit too.
I think he would have liked it. I think that you got to
His
recognize
character
that.
was like a deathly manager, though.
It's
they're
not
they're
about what he would have liked.
They're not exposing him as the person. It's
Right.
the pallbearer character. They're not going,
Involving
oh,
him.
William Moody died. These are his actual ashes in the urn.
You're not understanding me though. It's not about the guy. It's about death in general. It's such a disrespect for death.
I mean,
Death
it's the
is
Undertaker.
completely
He's
100%
associated with death.
surrounds the Undertaker. Casket matches, buried alive match. He's been killed how many times? He's been burnt in a casket. He's been buried.
It's always been in a comical way though. This is a very disrespectful way to do it.
I want to
It
figure out
depends on
how
how you
Paul Bearer
take it.
died if the
Would you
Dudleys couldn't
class
do
the
it.
whole Paul Bear getting encased in cement comical?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't.
I thought it was funny as shit. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, like when Kane took Paul Bearer out from locking him in the freezer, and he had like the icicles drawing down from his mustache
Yeah,
and all
that
that, and then he
was
pushed it
comical.
back, and he's like, "Oh no!"
But the whole I'm sorry, Paul, and putting like concrete on the freaking guy, that's not comical at all. And I think there's certain things that do encompass the Undertaker's character. I do agree with you. Seeing the whole Paul Bear, the urn being used the way it's been used, and Punk gaining heat the way that he's been gaining heat, it has sent a chill down my spine. It's made me really uncomfortable. But again, you
Maybe
can't.
that's what he
fault the
wants
guy.
you to feel.
Yeah.
Can't
Can't fault the guy on doing his job, and that's the thing. You're in a business. It's the same thing when you have celebrities sitting there shitting on people for taking pictures of them, even though that's that's what they're there for. They get these pictures taken. They expose themselves and their entire lives in front of the camera, and then they start bitching about privacy. Paul Bear was an entertainer. He was all, William Moody was an entertainer. He lived his life in pro wrestling, and the fact that they're utilizing him in this storyline is a test to how great of a character he was and how beloved he was.
Absolutely.
right?
And utilizing him in the storyline is one thing.
Yeah.
Pouring his ashes around and rubbing them on your chest and face is a little bit different.
But those
Don't
aren't
get
his
me wrong,
ashes, though.
It's questionable.
It's the symbol of his ashes, though.
It's the symbol of Paul
extremely-
Bearer's ashes, not William Moody's ashes.
But again, it's the
But
same.
it's the symbol
you've
of a
got
dead
Taker-
man's ashes.
You had Taker putting people up on a Taker symbol like it was a cross.
You gotta remember, nothing is sacred. It's the same reason why they could get away with using Jerry Lawler's heart attack and
Which was
Yeah.
also disgusting.
Yeah,
His
it was
dead
also
mother.
distasteful. And but the thing is as well, his family approved it. His next of kin approved
Mhm.
it. So no matter how we felt or how we
perceive
feel
it.
about- how we received the storyline at all, they got approval from the family, from the next of kin to do this.
It's obviously
They-
the way I
they-
perceived it is a lot different from the way maybe you or Peyton perceive it, right?
Yeah,
like
if it was done in bad taste, and the family didn't want
Like
them
some
to
of our
continue,
outros.
yeah, and they didn't want them to continue, they wouldn't have. It's like the same reason why the WWE never took the piss out of Owen Hart, falling from the freaking ceiling and dying.
You're
Because-
still not. Oh God, I'm sorry.
No, I do understand what you're saying.
It's not about the
it's-
fact that it was Paul Moody. It's just the dead in general. It could have been anybody
yeah.
that could have been doing it. It's not about how that person would have felt or how their family feels. It's how you treat the dead in general.
I understand that, but again, we live in a society
and
where
it's blurring the
there's
lines
no-
because
everything is up, for,
and on top of that, it's the
everything-
Undertaker and a storyline involving the Undertaker. What
It's
is this
not-
entire
everything's
gimmick
fair
surrounded around? It's surrounded by death.
Yeah, and everything is fair
The
game
dead
in
man.
society as well. You have freaking politicians being mocked. You have entertainers being mocked. You have every Tom, Dick, and Harry being mocked. Reality television, is another thing where you have general people going on TV and being made to look like either racists or evil twats or whatever, and it's supposed to expose them. The society gives people that freedom to expose themselves in such a way and expose things like death in such a medium that nothing is left sacred, and that's the problem. we don't. If they see something where they think, okay, this is going to draw heat, they'll do it. They don't care what it is. They were going to do an incestuous storyline at one point because they thought it would draw heat.
Well, I think what Peyton's kind of saying here is that it's okay that they necessarily brought some aspects into it, but that little last bit of rubbing the ashes on your face and all that was kind of, all right, you drew the line. Like,
yeah, if it was just CM Punk coming out while Undertaker was sitting there on bended knee and interrupting him, and that was that's all well and good, but they've really crossed some uncomfortable lines with this, like when he was throwing the urn around and playing catch with it and dropping it on the ground, and like I was saying, the dumping of the ashes. I think this is just a difference of personal taste on this. Like we could probably argue back and forth and have that. Let me go on to my second gripe about this match, and it's actually on the other aspect of it. These guys are just such a mismatch for each other. The Undertaker is supposed to be this big. He's not as much of a strong big man as he used to be, but him going against the scrawny little pipsqueak CM Punk. I don't know if you guys watched the press conference. I'm pretty sure we covered that before. But today at the press conference, John Cena referred to as CM Punk as a pedestrian.
Huh.
Those are his words exactly. He referred to him as a pedestrian, saying that he's going to beat a dead man.
It's pretty ridiculous that they would go there. Like,
to me,
nice way to bury a guy
for a scrawny guy the scrawny guy that's beaten the Undertaker's ass for the last 4 weeks. So
it's about promotion. Yeah, you've taken weeks worth of storyline.
It's not about size and stature. It's about what you do when you're in the ring.
I mean, how many times did Punk beat Ryback? I mean,
Yeah, it's intelligence over brute strength.
They're gonna have the best match of the night, like without question. They're gonna make us believe
it'll be one of the best. I don't know if it'll be the best match of the night because Taker's pretty fucking banged up.
Well, the way I think Chris is,
I don't know, and Punk, I don't know if you can consider him the best carrier in the business. He certainly isn't.
Well, you know what? I'll say this: he did a better job carrying the Rock than Cena.
And I disagree. I thought John did a better job than he did.
Now, Mike, you think that it's not only not going to be the best match of the night, you don't even think it's going to be necessarily a good one?
I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not necessarily not going to be a good one. I'm sure they're going to tell a great story. They both know how to tell a story. I just think their styles conflict each other, and the matches they've had previously were never very good.
Although, to be fair, they were never given good appropriate time nor build. Like the Hell in a Cell, they were given like less than 6 minutes, and Taker just basically destroyed Punk.
That was also
took the world title from him. And before that, they weren't given a whole lot of time to the pay-per-view before, and it was like a no finish. It was a screw job finish. And then they had 2 random TV matches after Punk got his head shaved, and that was it. They've never had like over 10 minutes to really work and have a good match or have a decent storyline put into it. This is the first real big time program they've had against one another. So maybe we'll get to see something different. We weren't given enough to judge to be able to tell, well, these two are just absolute shit in the ring together.
You know what the great thing about this match
this is a different CM Punk than the last one that fought the Undertaker.
Way different.
No, I agree. And the fun thing about it as well, Punk's not going in as the underdog this time.
Nope.
Arguably.
Taker is. And the thing about you saying that he's not 100%, it basically is shown in the promos and the way that the storyline is sort of reversed. People actually think Taker's in trouble now. And that's the genius behind this. And again, with all the foulness aside and the disrespect, Punk has put himself in a position that a lot of guys haven't been able to actually put themselves in. Guys like Triple H, guys like Shawn Michaels, guys who had all the tools to sort of defeat Taker and who have beaten him before. Yeah. Batista as well, yeah, who have beaten him before but couldn't do it at this situation, all went in as the underdog. They never went in as the clear-cut threat. And you've got a guy who's considered scrawny and as Mike stated, called him a pedestrian. He's actually looked like as the clear-cut threat in this match. And it's so to the point where people are now betting on this match so they can see if Punk is actually going to win it, because they're so, some people are actually even confident that he is going to win it.
I think of him as nothing more than, and this is terrible to say because they're both great talents, but I see him nothing more as a filler opponent just for this WrestleMania, just to wait for Taker's bigger match that seems like it's obviously going to be against John Cena. It's going to be his last match next year.
You know what? I disagree.
You disagree?
I believe that Taker is actually Punk's filler match, and he's been given.
I see it the other way around because Punk is just. Oh, they always saddle him with second best. I mean, they just will not let him main event this show. And by that I mean WrestleMania.
Why would they give him such a long reign if they see him as second best?
Well, because he had to prove himself. Like, once they prove that he's, like, one of the best on the shtick, and, you know, when he's face, he could be one of the best faces. When he's a heel, he could be one of the best heel. He was so talented, they couldn't hold him down.
Yeah, but they didn't have to give him the title for that long, so that actually proves that
fair,
they were confident in him.
They gave him the title for that long because they couldn't put it on John Cena because Cena wasn't supposed to hold it until he could beat The Rock for it. That was the thing. Someone needed to hold it until The Rock.
It was all about The Rock's involvement that caused his title. Although, to be fair, he could have lost it to anybody in between that time and won it back. So, they had enough faith in him to hold it throughout the entire period. So,
now, when it comes to like the final predictions, we all brought up that we all think Undertaker's going to win this.
21-0.
Does anybody think that there's even a modicum of a chance that CM Punk is going to win either?
Especially not after the storyline. The storyline
last WrestleMania, which I don't think it is.
If Punk does win, it would be a big feather in Punk's cap, and I think that it would be, in my mind, the right thing to do would be to pass the baton over to Punk. And out of anyone, he probably does deserve it. But after what's happened, after the way the storyline has played out, and after everything that's been done, there has to be.
He's got to come back. He's got to win. He's got to avenge. You know.
And
Paul,
over here, Taker will have to basically gain that redemption. I don't see Taker retiring now. I see him probably next year, maybe.
Yeah,
not now.
Next year's probably going to be his last WrestleMania, and against. I said this is his filler mania. Unfortunately, as bad as that is to say for a match this big, his bigger opponent will be against John Cena next year. Well, this is just another victory for him.
Coming back though, Brandon. That's why you can't say it was his filler because they didn't even know if he was going to work WrestleMania.
Yeah, but they still had plans for him to be here, even if he couldn't commit. They still had him penciled in against Punk.
Yeah, but they had alternate plans for Punk. If that didn't happen, including putting him in a freeway for the WWE Championship.
Yeah, or saddling him with Ryback. Oh, fucking thank God that never happened.
So, the end, and again, that's another one where Punk, Ryback looks like a piece of shit in half the matches that he's worked in. Punk, in the match against Ryback, actually looked at something that was a pay-per-view quality match that actually made Ryback look like a main event.
To be fair, it was supposed to be a pay-per-view match, so...
Do you know what I mean? It made him look like a main eventer. And all the other times we've seen him, he hasn't looked that way. So...
because he needs certain people to work with him to fucking hide his flaws.
In terms of carrying someone, I think Punk can do it. And I think in terms of Taker's status and the way he is at the moment, I believe that Punk is going to pull off.
You think you think he has the ability to carry somebody as banged up as Taker?
Yeah,
that's my only gripe with this match. Is I don't know if he can go as good, especially after last year's Hell in a Cell. And that would be my only thing. Is like if Taker can go 100% and him and Punk can have at her, I have no doubt that it'll be a great match. My issue is if he's like, and they say he is pretty fucking banged up. Is Punk good enough to carry him and kind of hide, the flaws that could happen?
I think he can carry anybody in the company, honestly. I think he's the
final.
He is a master
final
psychologist.
here.
That's the one thing I can say about these two. They know psychology. They know it like the back of their hand. And if anything, that's going to help the match.
Final predictions. Everybody going with Undertaker?
21-0.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to argue against it?
Nope.
There's no point. There's no point arguing against it.
Absolutely no point.
There's plans for him to work next year. Punk is not taking.
This feud wasn't good enough for Taker to lose. That's my thing. Like, it's not a strike on Punk. It's just this storyline isn't a good enough last Undertaker match thing. So I feel like it's next year.
All right, and that means we're going to go into the final part here. It's a long time coming, but we're finally going to get to part 12. WWE Championship, The Rock and John Cena.